My name is Mary Ann Franks. I'm a professor of law at the George Washington Law School, and I recently wrote a book called Fearless Speech, Breaking Free from the First Amendment. And the book is really about celebrating fearless speakers, and I define fearless speakers by going back to our ancient Greek roots of fearless speech and democracy. There's a concept that the Greeks had called parrhesia, and that concept is sometimes translated as free speech, but it is much better translated as fearless speech. And it was described by philosophers and by poets and others as a person who speaks truth to power, someone who is speaking to someone who is more powerful than they are and is willing to criticize that person or that entity, and they're doing so knowing that they could be punished for it. The reason why I think it's important to emphasize that this is fearless speech rather than just free speech is that oftentimes, especially in the American tradition of free speech, we think of free speech as being speech without consequences. Speech oftentimes that creates risks of danger to other people. You think about the neo-Nazis, you think about the KKK, and the kind of speech that they're espousing is not speech that is trying to cry out for equality, and it's not trying to criticize those in power, and it's creating danger for people who are more vulnerable than those speakers are. By contrast, a fearless speaker is someone who is speaking the truth because they know it to be true, and the danger that they create is a danger that is directed at themselves. And so it's the difference between reckless speech and fearless speech. And what I was struck by as I was going through the history of the First Amendment and the free speech tradition in the United States, that we really have overemphasized reckless speech to the detriment of fearless speech. And if we really think about the brave and the courageous speakers in our history, and there are many, what we really see is that the First Amendment wasn't protecting them. We think about the people who were advocating for the abolition of slavery, those who were calling for women to have the right to vote. We think about the civil rights marchers. If we think about the people who were protesting injustice at every stage in our history, there have been the occasional moments where our First Amendment law has converged with some of those speakers, but by and large, those speakers were left to their own devices, and sometimes they paid the ultimate price. Think of Elijah Lovejoy getting shot to death by a pro-slavery mob. We think about Ida B. Wells's newspaper getting burned to the ground because the white mob was so incensed at the op-eds that she was writing about lynching. We think about the women who were protesting in front of the White House for the right to vote, who were beaten and assaulted and jailed. And we think about contemporary moments where Black Lives Matter protesters and the victims of sexual harassment speaking out during Me Too. We think about the protests on campuses. And we think about how the law has come down on them, not to protect them. So what my book is about the limitations of the First Amendment, about how there are people who are willing to go beyond what the law will protect them to do, to say what the law will not protect them in saying. And those are the people that we really need to listen to, especially at a moment when we realize that the protections of the First Amendment are not as robust as we thought that they might have been.